Vietnam consistently regards China as top priority in its foreign policy.
UK sends Ukraine new tranche of military aid worth almost $1 billion.
US postpones tax imposition. Negi and businesses hope for bilateral negotiations.
You are watching today's news on NTV. My name is Nguyễn Thị and I will be your guide through today's latest update. The party and state of Vietnam always consider developing relations with China an objective necessity, a strategic choice, and a top priority in its overall foreign policy. Party General Secretary Tô Lâm made the statement during his talk in Hanoi on April 14 with Party General Secretary and President of China Xi Jinping, who is leading a high-level Chinese delegation on a state visit to Vietnam.
Party General Secretary Tô Lâm expressed his belief that the visit would mark a new milestone in the history of the friendly relations between the two parties, countries, and peoples as a contribution to further deepening the comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership and promoting the building of a strategically significant Vietnam-China community with a shared future. In response, the top Chinese leader affirmed his readiness, through this visit, to work with General Secretary Tô Lâm and other key leaders of Vietnam to engage in in-depth discussions on orientations and measures to strengthen the traditional friendship. Define a vision for building a China-Vietnam community with a shared future that holds strategic significance in line with 6 major orientations. Move forward together with greater resolve, and make greater contributions to the global community. In a warm, sincere, and candid atmosphere, the two leaders engaged in in-depth discussions on the situation of each party and country, the relations between the two parties and the two nations, as well as regional and international issues of mutual concern.
The British Ministry of Economy and Finance said that the United Kingdom transferred $990 million to Ukraine for the purchase of air defense system and artillery.
The war without America, Mr. President.
This aid package marks the second of 3 planned installments totaling £2.26 billion, almost $3 billion. The first transfer occurred on the 6th of March, with the final aid package scheduled for next year. The funds are part of a broader $50 billion international credit program that will be repaid using income from frozen Russian assets. Previously, UK Defence Minister John Heal said that Britain would provide Ukraine with £4.5 billion, almost $6 billion, this year.
President Donald Trump suggested that he might temporarily exempt the auto industry from tariff he previously imposed on the sector to give carmaker time to adjust their supply chain.
I'm looking at something to help some of the car companies with it, Trump told reporters at the Oval Office. He said automakers needed time to relocate production from Canada, Mexico and other places. Donald Trump's statement hinted at yet another round of reversals on tariffs as Trump's onslaught of import taxes has panicked financial markets and raised deep concerns from Wall Street economists about a possible recession. His hard lines on trade have become increasingly blurred as he has sought to limit the possible economic and political blowback from his policies.
Coming up next are some updated news.
Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali and his spouse Zinash Tayachu arrived in Hanoi on the afternoon of April 14. Commencing their 4-day official visit to Vietnam and participation in the 4th Summit of the Partnership for Green Growth and the Global Goals 2030, P4G, at the invitation of Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh and his spouse. This marks the first official visit to Vietnam by a high-ranking Ethiopian leader since the two countries established diplomatic relations, and also the first high-level delegation exchange between the two sides in 7 years. Vietnam and Ethiopia established diplomatic relations on February 23, 1976. Two sides are heading toward the 50th anniversary of their ties in 2026.
Ministry of Health said that Vietnam was officially recognized by the World Health Organization, WHO, as having eliminated trachoma nationwide. This achievement is the result after more than 70 years of persistent efforts to diagnose and treat trachoma and expel the once dangerous infectious disease from the community. The recognition was based on international evaluation criteria at the 75th session of the WHO Western Pacific region held in the Philippines on October 21 last year. This is an important milestone for Vietnam in general and the health sector in particular.
Ahead of the April 30th to May 1st holiday, the airlines of Vietnam Airlines, Pacific Airlines, and Vasco will offer more than 610,000 seats, equivalent to over 3,200 domestic flights, an increase of 35% and 29% respectively compared to the same period last year. The increased capacity focuses on key trunk routes and major tourist destinations such as between Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, and prominent destinations including Da Nang, Can Tho, Phu Quoc, Hue, Hai Phong, Tan Hoa, Khai Nam, Pleiku, Chu Lai, and Dong Hoi. The increase in flights aims to meet the travel and leisure demand during the major holiday.
After the U.S. announced that it would impose global tariff, economists and businesses were surprised by the 46% reciprocal tariff that the U.S. would impose on Vietnamese goods. However, the flexible and timely measure being implemented by the party and the government have reassured the business community and provided them with more motivation and hope for bilateral negotiation within the 90 days countdown.
Nghệ An Garment Company currently has 4 textile and garment factories in Nghệ An province. 95% of the company's goods are exported to the United States. Therefore, after U.S. President Donald Trump postponed tariffs for 90 days and initiated negotiations on reciprocal trade with Vietnam, the company's concerns have lessened.
Initially, we were very worried, but after General Secretary To Lam had a phone call with U.S. President, we are confident that the negotiation will bring good results.
Nhot Hoi Stone Processing Joint Stock Company also achieved annual export revenue of 12-15 million United States dollars. The company's goods are mainly exported to the U.S. market. After the U.S. announced a 90-day tax suspension, the company was very excited. The company increased working hours and improved labor productivity to ensure export progress.
The Special Working Delegation of Vietnam led by Deputy Prime Minister Ho Duc Phoc went to the U.S. in time to negotiate, and the U.S. agreed to extend the tax by 90 days. So, the business was very happy.
The imposition of high tariffs by the U.S. will negatively affect exports, foreign investment attraction, employment and economic growth. However, according to experts, Vietnam has certain advantages when negotiating tariffs with the U.S.
I think Vietnam will be affected by the U.S. tariff policy. However, if we know how to take advantage, this is also an opportunity.
After the phone call between General Secretary To Lam and U.S. President Donald Trump, the visit and working trip of Deputy Prime Minister Ho Duc Phoc to the United States, Vietnam has 90 days to negotiate and redirect its market. Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh has also signed a decision on the establishment of government negotiation delegation on trade issues with the United States to reach a reciprocal trade agreement. In addition, businesses are also calculating efficiency and costs to enhance competitiveness and diversify export markets.
It's time to say goodbye. Thanks for your watching and see you next time.